Good morning, this is your 10-point briefing for Monday, August 10, 2026. I'm Emma Tucker, and we've got a packed edition today, from private credit stress and political infighting in the Midwest, to a land rush in the Permian Basin, secrets leaking from Beijing, and the bruising race for rent in San Francisco. Let's dive in. We start at my desk, where private credit is showing increasing signs of stress, despite optimistic commentary from top fund managers trying to move past a year of turmoil. Default rates are hitting recent highs, and our analysis of quarterly reports from some of the most watched funds shows that loan health and investor returns are worsening. This is a space that's grown enormously in recent years, managing trillions in capital, and the cracks are becoming harder to paper over. The managers are saying the right things, that they've built in cushions, that the portfolio is resilient, but the numbers from their own filings tell a different story. Non-accrual rates are ticking up, payment-in-kind interest is accumulating, and the quality of new originations has been sliding. Investors who poured in during the low-rate years are now watching their distributions come under pressure, and the secondary market for these fund interests is pricing in deeper discounts. On the political front, Democrats in Minnesota are lashing out at fellow Democrats over the nation's largest pandemic-era welfare fraud. This isn't just finger-pointing, it's a full-blown intra-party war. The scandal involves hundreds of millions of dollars meant for feeding low-income children that were instead stolen through a network of sham nonprofits and complicit state officials. The fallout has scrambled the primary landscape. Balloting in Minnesota and neighboring Wisconsin, 2 of 6 states holding primaries tomorrow, represents the latest test of strength between establishment Democrats and the party's far-left flank. In Minnesota, the establishment is trying to hold the line against challengers who argue the party machinery failed to stop the fraud. In Wisconsin, the dynamic is flipped. The frontrunner in the Democratic primary for governor wants a 17% income tax and what she calls public groceries, state-run food stores to combat food deserts. That's a platform that would have been unthinkable in a statewide race a decade ago. Tomorrow's results will tell us whether the center still holds, or if the energy has fully migrated to the left. Now to today's headlines. Mark Zuckerberg laid out a new artificial intelligence vision in a 6,500-word essay, essentially a manifesto, with a game plan for winning over hearts and minds to his company's efforts. He's not just talking about models or chips, he's framing AI as the next great platform shift, akin to mobile or the internet, and positioning Meta as the open alternative to what he characterizes as the closed, rent-seeking approaches of rivals. The essay is part technical roadmap, part philosophical argument, part charm offensive. He writes about democratizing access and building for the long term, but the subtext is clear: Meta needs developers, regulators, and the public to buy into its vision of an open AI ecosystem, because its business model depends on not being gatekept by Apple or Google again. The length alone, 6,500 words, signals how seriously he takes the narrative battle. Backlash against AI data centers across the U.S. is driving a new land rush in the Permian Basin, which spans West Texas and New Mexico. The logic is brutal in its simplicity: AI data centers need massive, reliable power, and they need it yesterday. The Permian has gas, lots of it, and land, and a regulatory environment that can move fast. Companies are snapping up acreage not to drill, but to build gas-fired power plants right next to where the data centers will sit. It's a remarkable inversion, the oil patch becoming the power plant for the digital economy. Local officials are scrambling to update zoning, utilities are racing to upgrade transmission, and environmental groups are gearing up for fights over emissions and water use. The Permian was already the world's most productive oil field, now it's positioning to be the engine room of AI. Secrets from Chinese leader Xi Jinping's corruption purges keep surfacing online, defying a crackdown that has ensnared millions of people. The scale is staggering: millions investigated, detained, or punished since the anti-corruption campaign began over a decade ago. But despite the Great Firewall, despite the arrests of leakers, despite the sheer terror of the surveillance state, details keep escaping: internal discipline reports, recorded confessions, financial records, even video from interrogation rooms. They're being posted on overseas platforms, circulated in private chats, analyzed by exile media. Some of it appears to come from moles inside the system, officials or their staff who leak for profit, for revenge, or for insurance. The leaks reveal not just individual graft but the mechanics of power: how patronage networks operate, how factions settle scores, how the anti-corruption apparatus itself has become a tool of political control. Beijing calls it malicious fabrication, the leakers call it accountability. The cat-and-mouse game continues, and the secrets keep coming. Joe Biden's cancer has spread to his bones and further, his son Hunter Biden told the BBC, offering a new window into the aging former president's life. The interview was wide-ranging, covering his own legal troubles, his memoir, his relationship with his father, but that line about the cancer stood out. The former president, now in his early 80s, has been largely out of public view since leaving office. Hunter's disclosure confirms what many suspected: the prognosis is serious. It's a rare, unguarded moment from a family that has lived its private pain under public microscope for decades. The former president's office has not commented further. President Trump named Staff Secretary Will Scharf as the next White House counsel, starting in September. Scharf has been a close aide, involved in everything from judicial nominations to the administration's legal strategy on executive power. He's seen as a loyalist with a sharp mind and a combative streak, traits that align with where the president wants his legal shop. The current counsel is expected to stay on through the transition. The move signals a further consolidation of the legal team around the president's most trusted operators as the administration navigates a thicket of investigations, court challenges, and the legal architecture of its second-term agenda. Taylor Farms said it was removing certain products including guacamoles and salsas from grocery shelves over concerns of salmonella contamination. The recall affects multiple SKUs distributed nationwide. No illnesses have been reported yet, but the company is acting out of an abundance of caution after routine testing flagged a potential issue. It's a reminder of how fragile the fresh food supply chain remains and how quickly a single facility's problem becomes a national headline. Live from the markets, S&P 500 futures at 7,789, up 0.12%. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures at 54,114, down 0.07%. Nasdaq 100 futures at 29,940.25, up 0.35%. As of 6:12 a.m. Eastern. Carol Ryan writes that a group that doesn't want the Iran war to end soon? China's electric vehicle makers. The logic: conflict in the Middle East keeps oil prices elevated, which makes EVs more economically compelling globally, and Chinese manufacturers, who dominate the supply chain from batteries to finished vehicles, stand to gain. It's a cynical calculus, but geopolitics often is. Read it here first. The Republican Party is losing its edge with voters on the economy. With voters' negative impressions of the economy now hardening, some Republican and independent analysts say Trump and his GOP allies have little time to regain a key asset: their image as the party better suited to handle the economy. For the GOP, the fear is that voters who backed the party in 2024 believing Trump would ease the cost of living will stay home or defect this November, report Aaron Zitner and Justin Lahart. The downbeat mood on the economy stands in contrast to a stock market that has soared as enthusiasm over AI has taken hold. That divergence, Wall Street booming, Main Street grumbling, is the central political fact of this moment. The White House argues its policies need time. Voters say they've run out of patience. The numbers in the polling are stark. Trust on inflation, on housing costs, on the basic affordability of life has eroded sharply since the inauguration. The question is whether the GOP can pivot to a message that resonates, or whether the economic discontent becomes a drag on the entire ticket. Chart the rise of the unstoppable American tourist. American travel has transformed in recent decades. A nation of former homebodies has become one of zealous and moneyed international travelers, infiltrating every cobblestone corner of Europe and rapidly filling lesser-known destinations. Americans took a record 24 million trips to Europe in 2025. The travel is helping boost economies even as it has angered many locals who say their cities, now reliant on foreign visitors, are no longer serving them. Behind the shift is a supercharged U.S. economy that in the course of a generation has created a larger and wealthier class of Americans that views travel as an essential rather than a luxury, report Rachel Louise Ensign and Chelsea Delaney. The data is remarkable. Passport ownership has more than doubled since the 90s, spending per trip has risen faster than inflation, the demographic skew has shifted younger and more diverse. Europeans complain of overcrowding, rising rents, the homogenization of neighborhoods into tourist zones, but they also depend on the revenue. The phenomenon is reshaping cities, economies, and the very texture of daily life in places from Barcelona to Dubrovnik to the Greek islands. See the story: this city may be the South's most underrated getaway. Greenville, South Carolina, pairs nature access with a Michelin-recognized food scene and a buzzing downtown. Here's how to make a trip count. The piece walks through Falls Park on the Reedy, the Swamp Rabbit Trail, a restaurant row that punches far above its weight class, and a revitalized Main Street that feels authentic rather than manufactured. It's the kind of mid-sized city that's benefiting from the domestic travel boom: accessible, affordable, and still surprising. Happening today, jury selection begins for the Tupac Shakur murder trial. Decades after the iconic rapper's killing in Las Vegas, a case that went cold is finally moving toward a courtroom. The defendant, Dwayne "Kef" D. Davis, has acknowledged his involvement in interviews and a memoir. The trial promises to revisit one of music's most enduring mysteries. Also on the earnings docket, Trump Media and Technology, Simon Property Group, and AST SpaceMobile. We'll be watching all three. The number, 3728. That's the average monthly asking rent in the San Francisco metro area, according to real estate data firm CoStar. San Francisco's housing market was already a demolition derby for renters, but the AI boom has pushed the bruising race for housing into overdrive. Rents are up 18% in under 2 years, pushing San Francisco past New York City to reclaim the crown for the highest average rent in the U.S. for the first time since 2019. The influx of highly paid AI workers, engineers, researchers, product managers has collided with a housing supply that barely budges. Open houses draw dozens of applicants within hours, bidding wars on rentals are routine, tech companies are buying up apartment blocks to house recruits. The city that once prided itself on bohemian affordability is now the most expensive rental market in the country, and the gap between the haves and the have-nots is etched into every lease signing. And finally, monoculture made a comeback this summer. The end of monoculture has been widely reported. Earlier this year, Ben Fritz wrote in the journal that monoculture entertainment that is universally consumed is dying a rapid death. This summer suggested something else. People still crave the feeling of watching, cheering, and talking about the same thing at the same time. From the World Cup and the Odyssey to Spider-Man, Brand New Day, we're finally all watching the same things, giddily cheering for goals and legendary heroes, be they super or otherwise. It's been awesome. The fragmentation of media was supposed to kill the shared experience. Instead, the biggest events, sports, tentpole films, cultural moments have only grown more central. We curate our own feeds 99% of the time, but for that 1%, we still want to be in the same room, even if the room is virtual. The monoculture isn't dead, it's just learned to coexist with the niche. Beyond the newsroom, the frontrunner in the Democratic primary for Wisconsin governor wants a 17% income tax and public groceries. And on the buy side, the best high-yield savings accounts offer high returns, little to no fees, and low balance requirements. Find the account that best fits your financial goals. That's your 10-point briefing for Monday, August 10th. This edition was curated and edited by Morgan Smith and Gary Mitchell in collaboration with me, Emma Tucker. We'll be back tomorrow with the primary results from Minnesota and Wisconsin, and whatever else the day brings. See you then.